My relationship with the Coogee Center came out of my relationship with the leadership of that community. It was the St. Thomas Housing Development in the St. Thomas Irish Channel community, which had once been predominantly white and Irish, but with desegregation of housing, it began to flip like everything else. It became predominantly white, black. And it was really interesting because when I first started out as a social worker many years ago, I worked in that community. And I
Mhm.
worked in that community, which was still majority white. It was to help white families get access for food stamps because we know that hunger was persistent. I work for the state? I may have worked for the state at that time, and but families wouldn't go and apply because the pride thing and blah blah blah. It's like, nah, but this is for the people, and the government is saying it understands that people are struggling and that you should have access to it. And I left, did a bunch of other stuff, and I ended up coming back to that same community. I was invited back by the leadership. The Coogee Center came out of the idea that that community said, we are sick and tired of nonprofits getting money, benefiting off of us, using us as their database. However, they don't include us in any decisions going on in our community. What we really want, they don't listen, which is what a lot of nonprofits forget. They just want to provide services, whether the community asks for them or not. Like all services, like my mom used to say, all money ain't good money, all services ain't good services. So it is what it is. So we we had already developed something called the Irish Channel Consortium, where the community said to every nonprofit within its reach, its purview that it could touch, that had used that development particularly for its database to go get money. Like, oh, we got all these poor people. We're going to provide them all these services. We need $500,000. But they never talked to the people. My job was an organizer. And when the community invited me in to come and be an organizer for them, not, I wasn't them there. And so part of my responsibility was to make sure that that community got a sense of its own power, its leadership, and that it would say, tell me this is what we want. And what I realized in many years that I am an interpreter for my community. My thing is, I have to be an accountable interpreter for my community to white organizations and to interpret back and forth. But I have to be accountable to that community, and I have to teach that community how to hold me accountable. And that's very difficult for folk, you know what I'm saying? To know when you're a leader and when you're an organizer, there's two very different and specific skill sets. Uh, and understanding how they flow together. So we founded the consortium, and then we were there was money out there. I think it was New Orleans. I'm trying to think. It was a health foundation. I think it was. They were asking for grants, and we go like, we need to create a center in our community. They wanted to fund something that dealt with teen pregnancy. That was their thing. And so they said to us, basically, if you change it, because you all are a group, because that organization was not just in that community. The leadership in that public housing impact and influence the leadership of every public housing um, community in that city. It was very, very powerful politically. And we understood that. So they said, but you all have, done all this work with no money. But what the community said to these agencies that, like all the services they were providing, that it didn't really matter. They were as poor then as they were before all these agencies were constructed. And they said to them, if you don't come and sit at the table with us as equal partners, and understanding we don't have infrastructure, all that stuff, and people do the research. However, we do understand that we will go to every entity that funds you and say cease and desist any funding coming in this community on our behalf. agencies had never heard anything like that before. You know what I'm saying? They were used to dealing with people who did not have a sense of their own power, who said, you know, I will do whatever if we get some kind of resources. But this community, the brilliance of the leadership in that community were some of my best teachers. Not my professors. These women, 99% African American women, were profound in their wisdom. And I always have to lift them up. Barbara Jackson, Fannie McKnight, I mean, Miss Carroll, just, and then the younger ones like Patrice was there, Tammy Fleming White, and just these, just Katrina, all these names, Gerald, Cool Black, all these young people that I've seen go on and still providing leadership around this country and in this city. And so they said, okay, if you deal with teen pregnancy, and it was probably the first time they had a community meet with them and say, if you want us to deal with teen pregnancy, we don't want your $5 million or your $1 million. And they said, what? I was like, what? Y'all, everybody, y'all, no, we don't want it. And they went back. In fact, I have to give credit to Nancy Aronson. The Institute of Mental Hygiene was the name of the foundation. And Nancy Aronson, who was clear, she understood how stuff worked. And she was the director. She said, she went back, blah, 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 to her board or whatever. She came back. She said, y'all just the kind of organization we're looking for. You know what I'm saying? Y'all not the ones just want to take the money, but you want to set your own agenda. And so the Coogee Center was not created around teen pregnancy. It was created around building in our young people a worthfulness, because